Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is John, Best Words Podcast. Talking about Antman and the Wasp today. I'm joined by Brian and Sam as usual. We have a guest today. His name is Chris. Chris, say hi.
Hello.
Awesome. How's everyone doing today?
Living.
Barely. So, like I said in the beginning, we're going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm really interested to hear what Sam has to say because Ant-Man was probably his quote-unquote favorite Marvel movie, or one of his favorites. So,
exactly what I said. It's better than Infinity War.
I mean, solo outings. Shut up. So,
No,
yeah.
Solo was bad. We already talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
Shut up. Whatever. All right. So kind of standard, good, bad, in between, but I guess kind of an overall synopsis of the movie. Anyone feel like the opening scene was a little bit unnecessary, considering I feel like we saw it twice in the original movie?
Did we?
I remember seeing it
Yes.
once. I want to say I saw it twice in the movie.
We already knew that was what was going to be going on with the story. I don't think it was that necessary.
For the whole
The whole flashback thing.
yeah, it was weird. Like all of that just to introduce the quantum tunnel.
To introduce a character that they had already introduced in the first movie.
Yeah, we didn't actually see it was Michelle Pfeiffer though.
Yeah,
Oh
but
my goodness.
he had said the director said he'd wanted Michelle Pfeiffer from the beginning. Like as soon as he knew he was going to cast her.
I think it would have been a better payoff at the end if they had just not done it at the beginning.
Fair enough. So that scene was a little weird. Just like I said, they introduced the quantum tunnel to say that Scott came back, so we can possibly save Janet. But didn't kill the movie or anything. So after that scene, it does the whole intro, and then it starts with Scott under house arrest. Anyone know? He had been under house. Kept saying 2 years, right? So that means 2 years from Civil War, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that puts it. I mean, they don't specifically say timeline, but that in Infinity War they said how many years it had been since they stopped talking, right? Was it 4?
Since who had stopped talking?
From the events from Civil War into Infinity War.
I don't remember.
Yeah, neither do I.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
I know it had been a few, but I don't remember them
The exact number.
exactly saying. Yeah.
I'll find out.
Okay, yeah, you look that up. So one of the things that I'm kind of happy about personally is I said that before I saw the movie when we talked about it, I'll be happy with the movie if it doesn't abandon its whole Scott is an ex-con. He's a father who, him and his wife were separated and he's trying to take care of his kid and just be a part of her life. I said that if they do those things, more than likely I'd be happy with the movie. So I'm glad that when it started off, he was, still, like, the consequences of Civil War were still affecting him. And him being on house arrest plus the ex-con thing, having to, like, take care of his daughter and have an adventure and whatnot. That was really nice for me, at least. Like I said, I like when it doesn't forget, like, the elements that make him relatable, personally. I don't know if anybody else cares about that or has anything to say about it.
I mean, not really.
No?
I mean, what my impressions were going in. I was just thinking that it was going to be similar to Iron Man 2, where it was going to do a whole bunch of stuff that was kind of neat, but ultimately forgettable.
Gotcha. I'll say that, what was it? I don't remember. Sorry, got off track. So he's hanging out with his daughter. FBI shows up to kind of remind him of what's going on. Meanwhile, his friends, Luis and all them, are. Oh no! Wait, no. He has the dream when they open the tunnel, where where Janet plants the antenna in his head.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we didn't get to see a lot of the quantum realm in the first one. Like, it kind of zoomed through a lot of it.
We didn't.
Anyone else feel like it? It was really interesting for me because I kept comparing it to the imagery in Doctor Strange, which I really liked when he was like traveling through the different dimensions,
Yes.
I can see that.
I noticed that.
and I really liked that. I mean, intentional or not, Thor made a reference a long time ago that what he calls, what humans call science and what he calls magic eventually become almost indistinguishable. So, it really, even if it wasn't intentional, that's kind of what I drew from it. I don't know, just looking too much into it. But it was cool seeing more of that. And he called Hank and Hope to leave them a message about the dream. And then she picks him up and takes him to the lab. How did you guys feel about the comedy throughout it? Like, it on par with the first one? Better, worse, different? Not 100% sure. Like, where you guys fall on it.
Like, for me, it felt pretty much on par with the first one. It felt very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't feel like they were over the top with it.
Yeah.
It was pretty reserved in some spots.
Like,
But I
it's
think it
still
fit.
very- Sorry, it's Chris.
Good. I think it still kind of fit the same overall tone as the first movie.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think
Like, even though they dropped Edgar Wright from the film, I don't think that it really altered the tone that much.
Gotcha. I know while they were sneaking around and whatnot, Brian, wasn't that your favorite joke in the movie?
Yes.
The
When they called out the
hat and glasses.
hat and sunglasses.
Yeah, he was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
He's like, "We're out here in broad
We're
daylight.
like the same
What do you
people,
mean?
We're just at a baseball game.
Yeah, we have disguises." That was really funny because we've said that forever. That how does fucking 6'7" or whatever Captain America, perfect human specimen, and Black Widow, like super beautiful, like secret spy agent, how do they blend in with just a baseball cap and glasses? Like, it doesn't make sense. So it was funny for Scott to kind of
I've always said, like, it just makes them stand out more to me than anything else.
exactly.
It's like that. I like that he called it out, and then they get busted for it.
Right. I think for relatability, as far as like Marvel characters go, for Scott, I think people kind of gravitate towards him, at least from what I can tell, is he's very much just like a run-of-the-mill guy. Like, when Hope and Hank are talking about like the quantum stuff, and he's kind of just like, sure, right? He's just I don't remember what they talked about his like credentials in the first one, but he's not like a scientist or anything. He just he's a thief, and he has like a technology background.
I think he has a electrical engineering degree
Yeah, I
or
think
something like
He
that.
was electrical engineer.
Yeah. Thanks for pulling that up, Chris. Yeah. So can't really relate to the science stuff, and he's more than willing to call the jokes out, as he sees fit, kind of like how I feel like a normal person would do. Because he's not a billionaire, he's not a sorcerer supreme or anything. He's just a regular guy trying to spend time with his daughter.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's there to function as the audience, essentially. Is probably why they decided to use Scott instead of Hank.
And that
for
makes
Ant-Man
sense.
in the first place.
Because even in Civil War, like when he meets Cap and all them, like he kind of fanboys, like I feel a lot of people would do if they ever actually met some of these people. So
One thing I will say is that, like, if you're familiar with the comics, you kind of know that Hank Pym is a massive piece of shit.
mm-hmm.
So I prefer this version of him where he's not just like a horrible
Person.
wife beater.
Gotcha. Yeah,
He's
no.
still a dick, but he's not nearly.
He's a dick, yeah, but he's not like an absolutely terrible human being like he is in the comic books.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, after that we get the first fight scene. So Hope goes to meet that black market dealer. I absolutely loved watching the fight scenes. Similar to Doctor Strange, how I kind of like geeked out over those fights. They were very cognizant of their superhero they were working with, and they took full advantage of the shrinking and the growing. And then when Ghost gets introduced, again, they take advantage of the fact that she can phase through things, so it changes the overall kind of flow of the fight, right? She, someone throws a punch and she doesn't dodge, it goes through, and then she immediately follows. Or there's a scene when I think Hope like had her in like a chokehold or something, and Ghost like front flips, phases through a table, and then Hope hits it. Like stuff like that is cool to me because they, like I said, they're constantly, they recognize their character has innate abilities that will alter how a fight would normally go between just regular people, and it was a good contrast because she had just been fighting regular people. So that really did it for me. I don't know if anybody else, cared or.
It was different. I mean, my biggest complaint with the movie actually comes from Ghost. Like, it bothers me a whole lot that Marvel continues to keep using throwaway characters instead of actually diving into these characters' backstories and grabbing like solid villains that can grow in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about Ghost, because like I can kind of understand, but from what I've heard as well, they've also in Agents of Shield, they're actually they explain more of her backstory or something like that.
Do they? I mean,
I-
that makes sense since they said that she came from Shield.
Yeah.
I don't know. If they did, I don't remember it.
Okay, so Chris, you keep up with Shield more.
Are you current on Shield, Chris?
I haven't seen her in Agents of Shield. I don't remember them talking about her, but they may have in a scene and I just missed it.
Gotcha.
Is it what? From what I heard, it was like one of the newer episodes. I don't know how.
I mean, I've seen all of them. I'm current on it, so
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Man,
have to go back.
Don't
I have to go back and look at the article then.
don't you question his credentials? How dare you?
No, I was just curious because I need to
Sure.
catch up. Quite honestly.
He's our expert witness.
Right. Okay. So they.
Like, seriously, I can't be the only one that this bothers. Like,
So I'll talk about it more at the end of the movie. I didn't mind Ghost, personally.
it's not a matter of minding the character. It's a matter of, like, you have this giant, rich lore to pull from, and one of the biggest complaints or critiques that I continue to have with the Marvel films is that they keep using characters, or villains specifically, that they aren't doing anything with. They're just one-shot villains, and it really bothers me.
Well, she's not a one-shot.
I mean, technically she is.
No. I think
Did
you're
you
wrong with
see
that.
the end of the
Well,
movie?
We'll hit that more towards the end, because that's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up with her and how she's a little bit different than a lot of the villains that get introduced. Let's see. So they escape from Ghosts, and then they go to the ex-con security company that Luis runs. It was cool seeing those guys again. They didn't have as big of a part in the first one. They didn't really need one, but their interactions were still funny. I still enjoy them as like comedic relief characters.
The Baba Yaga thing was.
Oh, yeah,
That was pretty good.
Yaga thing was really good.
Like Baba Yaga, and he's like, "What?" And he keeps. That was hilarious. I love that. So after that, they try to find the lab. I really liked the Goliath throwback. That Bill.
Yeah, I liked the fact that they introduced Bill Foster.
Yeah.
Because that was a really good throwback to Giant Man.
Yeah, when he said Project Goliath, I was like, oh, oh, that's cool. Like I liked the reference to him.
And I like that they established that him and Hank have a history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that bringing Bill in was really cool because, comic book geek. Woo!
Yeah, I think the interactions of Bill and Hank were some of the best. I guess character development's the right phrase for Hank, right? Because we don't get to see much of his interaction in the first movie with people. Like he has the brief interaction with Howard Stark in the beginning, and that's really about it. And it gives us a good taste of it. But Bill was not scared to continually just take digs at Hank.
Right.
And just, your wife and everyone, couldn't stand you, and you're just stubborn jackass and like all this other stuff. So like, whereas Scott's very much kind of like, oh yeah, whatever, Hank, I'll do exactly what you tell me. And even his daughter kind of, she has some retorts with him, but overall she's still, his daughter. For Bill to just go in on him, it was just interesting to see kind of someone else's opinions on Hank.
The next movie should really just be about Hank and Bill, and they can call it Grumpy Old Men. Because I'd watch that.
Yeah. Next part is the school part, when they sneak into the school, and Paul Rudd's suit keeps malfunctioning, and he's just like a child size.
I think that was probably the funniest part of the movie for me.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I liked when the teacher was like, hey, where's your hall pass? And he just takes off. He's like, wait. And he's just like, whatever.
No, stop.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not chasing after you. I don't get paid enough for this. So I thought it was funny. Next part. When his friends get interrogated, the whole truth serum thing. That was funny.
That was a great scene.
Yeah.
Truth serum.
You're just open to suggestion and influence. Oh, so like a truth serum. It's not a truth serum. And then he, he's like, well, that's where Scott is at emotionally. And he's like, well, where is he at literally? Like, Luis plays that part really well. Just the talking. It was really funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like his, crazy rambling stories. But it's like when he goes into it, and they're like, just stop. He's like, no, you open this door. You got to let him keep going.
Oh, yeah. You got to let it play out. Yeah. And then seeing Scott and Hope like act out the scenes that he was talking about was also funny, just because it's his kind of, interpretation of it. I thought that was hilarious. And then, so they get interrogated. He tells them where they all are in the woods. So again, one of those things, kind of harping on what I said earlier about Scott staying true to his motivations. I wish he would have made a big, not a big deal, but he would have like confronted Hank and Hope about it. Because he wants to help them find Janet, but at the same time, right, his main motivation is I want to get off this probation so I can spend time with my daughter outside of my house and not go to jail and XYZ. And he keeps telling him, he's like, I got to get back to my house. And understandably, Hank and Hope are more focused on their mom, and they're like, we'll deal with that if it happens, versus like, oh yeah, no, I understand, kind of. And I wish Scott would have kind of said something about it. Like
they didn't really play it up as emotionally as they could have.
At least between them, because I definitely wanted Scott to be like, look, I want to help. I want to help you get Janet back, but if I screw this up, I'm gone. Like, I'll never see my daughter again outside of jail. Like, I wish that would have been played up a little bit, but at least
I mean, like, even setting up the beginning of the movie and the last movie, like, they're both extremely focused on these two, or on how much Scott adores his daughter and how much he would do anything for her. And then they're just like, oh, we got to do this thing. He's like, oh, well, okay.
As long as I'm back in time. And then when they're kind of like, you need to stay here, he doesn't, he says, guys, I got to go. But it's not like it's not like
passionate about it. He's just like, yeah, this is the thing I got to do. Like, this is just on my list of things to do today.
For sure. So I wish they would have played that a little bit, but I mean, overall, he still kind of keeps with that motivation, and I really like that. Trying to think. So that happens. They get sent over there. They try to leave. The FBI catches them, and they try to steal the lab, but Ghost takes it again. And then
I mean-
I'm trying to think.
I want to know
Oh,
how
wait.
it is they can shrink down an entire lab and throw it around like that, and
Yeah.
nothing gets messed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, just let it go, okay? Also, did they put the handle on the building when it was full size, or did they do it after the fact? And how did the
Right? That's like
How-
a massive sliding mechanism
how
to
did the-
have running through the entire building.
how do the wheels work? Because they weren't on the bottom of the building. No, there's a lot of things that you kind of have to suspend. The part I did forget was when they got captured by Bill and Ava. Not much happened there other than more of the Scott and Cassie thing. And then obviously we find out that Bill has been working with Ava to
Okay,
help
like
her.
their whole motivation for that kind of bothered me. How they're like, we gotta get Janet back so that we can use her cells to fix Ghost or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like, she's one of the smartest scientists on the planet who's been working with quantum technology. I'm sure if you get her back, she can just help you. Like, I don't understand why you have to
Right.
kill her.
Well,
That's ridiculous.
so I understand Bill's distrust at first, and then I understand Ava's kind of wanting to just like, here's a solution, here's one that
Like,
you
I
know.
think I could understand her desperation more if they hadn't been like, you've got 2 weeks until anything happens. Like, that's plenty of time to get her back and try and work something out, or figure out if there's a solution outside of just doing that.
For sure. No, like I said, it wasn't perfect. Like I definitely agree with you that it was a little weird, but I think it fits well enough. Right? I agree with you. It could probably have been better if they had shortened the time that she would have been okay, or some other thing. I don't know, MacGuffin.
Because I just felt like they were throwing that in for the sake of having it there, not because it was necessary or there was any real desperation for it.
Gotcha. Oh, fair enough. Let's see. So that happens. They're called by the FBI. Scott comes back, gives them their suits, and that's when the car chase happens, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
What did you think about that, Brian? You're always talking about how you like car chases. How was that one for you?
It was okay. It was different, if nothing else. It wasn't like one of my favorite car chases of all time.
Mhm.
But I appreciated that they were using the elements of the movie to work around the car chase. I also do really like that they were carrying cars around in a Hot Wheels case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, right? Like I think Marvel is getting better at. Well, I say getting better. Maybe it's just I got to go back and rewatch them. I do appreciate that they, like I said, they're very aware of the hero they're working with,
Yes.
and kind of what the putting themselves in that character's shoes and saying, okay, how would this person transport their lab? How would this person provide transportation for them and their team? And you know, carrying it around in a Hot Wheels car and
Right.
shrinking and growing it is one of those things that when you see it on screen, you're like, oh, no, duh. But until you see it, like, it's probably not on your mind.
Yeah.
And then
But I did enjoy it.
using it in combat as well, right, as they were
Yeah.
racing away. So here's something I want to bring up that it's kind of related, kind of not related, because it's about Guardians 2. Remember, I've told you guys one of the few things I didn't like about Guardians 2 was the Pac-Man thing, just because I feel like, sure, does it fit Peter's character, but it's one of those things that it's just like, oh, hey, it's Pac-Man. Remember Pac-Man? Like the Hello Kitty Pez thing, I feel like is similar, but I'm way more okay with that. And I don't know if it's just because it's Luis and Hope that had the interaction beforehand, and Hope's smart, so she understands there's a use for it in the fight, or I don't really know what it is, but I don't know if anyone else can kind of clear that up for me as far as
why you don't have a problem with it.
yeah, I guess
It's because you're biased. That's what it is.
is that what it is?
Well,
Yes.
it actually fits more into, because they brought up the whole Pez thing
Uh-huh.
a while ago, and then they used it, so they set up and gave you that experience. And you're just like, oh, I thought that was just for the feels because it was from the daughter,
Right.
and
I
then
don't feel like
and then it came up versus like
for-
Pac-Man that just came out of nowhere.
Well,
Right, but I don't feel like you really need that for Star-Lord because they've already spent 2 films establishing that he's a child of the 80s.
Well, and I guess my thing is like with the Hope wasn't betting the fate of the world on a Hello Kitty Pez dispenser. Peter was betting like fighting ego on being Pac-Man. Is I guess the other kind of like.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the stakes in Ant-Man are much lower than the stakes were in Guardians.
I guess. I
Like,
mean,
the
yes, but I'm just saying.
The whole
I don't
thing
know.
is confined. Like, nothing that happened, like, within reason, nothing that happened in Ant-Man and the Wasp would have had a whole lot of impact on the rest of the Marvel Universe outside of the quantum realm.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it could be a lot of things. I just felt like bringing it up because I liked the car scene. I liked the Bez dispenser coming out, the shrinking of the bikes.
I
Hope-
enjoyed it. It
Hope
was imaginative.
flying around and through
Yeah.
things and shrinking the car and
Hope fighting in the car kind of reminded me of Deadpool.
for sure. Yeah, I think it kind of hit a couple of those notes. Let's see. And then so Ghost and Hope are fighting for the lab as well as Ant-Man. What's his name gets away. I forget his name.
The
The bad guy, whatever his name was, he steals the lab, and Scott
Yeah.
turns into Giant Man to chase
Yeah.
him down. That was pretty cool. Like seeing Giant Man on screen is always fun. And then the they thought it was a whale and it was his feet. And then his kind of pettiness of like once he took the lab, he just like poked him, and he like I don't know, like it's definitely one of those things where he knows he's being unprofessional, but it's like whatever,
Right.
I'm having fun. Are there limitations to Giant Man in the comics, like his whole like passing out thing, like being tired? Like, is that? I
I mean,
imagine
that's basically the limitation is just it's exhausting to grow to those hut sizes.
Gotcha.
But that's more a limitation of the technology. I'm sure that it's something that's been approached in the comics. I'm not super familiar with Ant-Man and Goliath beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
just because like I'm aware of those comics and I know some of the major points of them, but I'm not a huge fan of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So while that's happening, I completely forgot. Hank goes into the quantum realm to get Janet. Again, it was cool to see the quantum realm a little bit more in depth and kind of like the micro universes. I don't know how to describe it, but it is really colorful.
Teenyverse.
Tinyverse, microverse, miniverse. I really like that. And then right
Can-
before that, I'm sorry, I completely forgot one of my favorite parts. When Janet took over Scott's body, and everyone
Yeah.
was just kind of like awkward about it, because
and then it wasn't.
he starts like having her mannerisms, and even like Hank's kind of like I don't know what's going on here.
Like I really like Scott as a character,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that he works a lot better than doing a movie with Hank would have. And
Because wouldn't Hank have been kind of another Tony essentially?
essentially, like a little bit more douchey Tony.
Gotcha.
So what's the
But-
difference between God, I cannot remember his name now. You just said that.
Doctor Strange, Hank.
No,
Pym?
no.
Tony Stark, Howard Stark,
No, the Ant-Man.
Scott Lang.
Scott?
It's Scott and Star-Lord. Like
What's the
they're kind of
differences between them?
well, okay. One's
I
more
mean,
childish than the other. Actually, I think
but
about
I
it.
mean, I think really their character types are very similar.
That is an interesting thing to think about. To come back to that.
Also, no shout-outs to the tardigrades. How dare you?
Tardigrades. What?
Tardigrades. The
I mean-
organisms that not Scott, that Hank was like around. They look like giant bears, space bears.
Sure, Sam. Tardigrades are awesome.
They are
They
awesome.
did their job.
I mean, they had giant tardigrades in Star Trek Discovery.
That's true.
Yeah, Sam, get with it.
No, I knew that.
Oh no, you didn't.
We're not talking about that now.
I mean, it was interesting. I don't know. I felt, to me, that was kind of a little weird.
What was?
The tardigrades.
Oh, yeah.
That they sounded like whales.
Well, I mean, they had to make it interesting.
I mean, I feel like they were mostly thrown in for comedic relief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another thing to hit on that I kind of liked as far as small details. I did like that Scott was still also really worried about the business because of the whole ex-con thing and wanting to make money and have a living.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
small detail that I think, had they left it out, a lot of people wouldn't have cared. But I think continuing to make his worries front and center is important for his character.
I have a lot to worry about in this movie.
Right. But I think that's real life, right? He doesn't
Sure.
have the resources that Tony or all of them have. So there wasn't really. So it's interesting. Outside of like the fights with Ghost, and the car chase, there weren't too many. There wasn't a big ending fight. Like they kind of wrestled with Ghost again. Before Janet and Hank got back, but it wasn't like this, grandiose end-all fight, especially compared to like the first movie, right? Like that fight was drawn out and it took place over a couple different locations. This one it wasn't really there, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I'm just pointing it out. I don't know how anyone else feels about the final fight. Not necessarily being something that was drawn out or expanded upon more.
I don't know. Like I've already said I didn't really care much for Ghost in the first place, so
Mhm.
like I really liked the fight scene in the first movie, but
Gotcha.
I also thought that Yellow Jacket was a little bit more iconic of a character to use.
Mm-hmm.
I think the entire movie was trying to be a lot more comedic than
Mm-hmm.
like other things. Because Ragnarok did have a big fight too.
Yes.
I don't know. I
It
think
also had fucking Bruce landing on his face on the rainbow bridge,
Yeah.
which was my favorite part of the entire thing.
I don't know. I think they're going for more comedic instead of like superhero movie.
Right.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think about like the overall kind of like ending note compared to other Marvel movies? Was it a good thing, bad thing? Kind of like is it inconsequential as far as wrapping up a movie?
I mean, I don't know. I thought it worked for the movie.
Mhm.
It's kind of hard to me. It's kind of hard to judge the Ant-Man movies against the other ones,
Mhm.
because he is in essence, such a different character than all the other Avengers.
Gotcha.
I was fine with how they wrapped it up at the end.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it worked with the movie. So
Okay.
it didn't bother me at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
It really bothered me how Janet showed up and was like, "Oh, here's your problem. Here, conflict solved. Just
I can
put my
fix
hand
you."
on your head. Everything's good."
Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyone else think that it was going to be Bill in the giant suit that was up against the building? Because I thought it was going to be Bill and not just an empty suit,
Right.
just so he could experience the height. I don't know, something small. So we'll talk about the mid-credit scenes and the end-credit scene. They end the movie. Scott, Hope, and Cassie are hanging out in a shrunken down car watching like a movie on the laptop, but it's like a drive-in theater, which I thought was kind of cute. Again,
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
like the way that they used the tiny props was good.
they're always like they're always aware. So that's kind of the whole movie in a nutshell. I kind of want to and we've been kind of briefly touching, bits and pieces of it over it. Kind of what's everyone's takeaway as far as like the good parts of it? Like for me, it's the attention to the hero they're using, right? The being aware that it's Ant-Man, so you kind of want to tailor the scenes to that. I loved Scott's interactions with pretty much everybody: Cassie, Hope, Hank, whoever.
My biggest problem was that, like, I think the characters are all really strong, minus Ghost, but the plot for me felt really weak.
Okay.
Yeah,
like
it's
super thin, and I felt like it was like the entire film was just trying to get to the point for the mid-credit scene, and it didn't really feel like it was worth it to me.
Gotcha.
I think I could have just seen that scene in like a mid-credit scene for Infinity War, and I would have been fine.
See, I don't know. I think the quantum realm is going to have really big implications moving forward, and building a movie around getting to that point, I'm kind of okay with, because I want to see how Janet fits in with the larger universe, given that she's obviously got some sort of power on her own.
But she's gone.
No, Janet's still there. Well, okay, if she comes back. My point being is that it'll have bigger implications. I don't know. Like I didn't really have a problem with Ghost, so we'll address that ending. I guess the ending to the actual movie. This was one of those movies, and a couple of them did it. Not all of the movies. A couple of the other movies have not killed off the villain of the movie. Right, Ghost is still alive with Bill.
Well, right, but she's clearly not going to be a villain now.
Well, no, and I'm fine with her not being a villain. I'm just saying
that's not my problem. My problem is the fact that they're bringing in no-name characters. They need bigger villains in the Marvel universe, especially since they killed off Loki in Infinity War. Like, we've got one big villain at this point, and he's already done what he set out to do.
No, Dormammu's big.
I mean, he's big, but he's not like the biggest threat that the world's going to see. He's kind of contained to his own little dimension
for now.
So you don't feel like they're setting up Thunderbolts and how important that would be?
I want them to be, but they've yet to really do anything with it that I want them to do.
But they could do it.
Tying into the Thunderbolts thing, Sam, Ant-Man, one of the major Ant-Man villains would have been Taskmaster, and Taskmaster would have made a better addition to the Thunderbolts and could have tied into that idea.
True.
Plus, he's a very different character from Ant-Man.
I don't know. I would like to see more of Ghost and, like, I guess her backstory in general.
I did appreciate that they didn't just have carbon copy of Hero as the villain.
Yeah.
But I still felt like the villain was very generic.
Oh, that's one thing I really liked about the movie that I kind of didn't get to talk about. I like the effects on Ghost. All the after images, and how, like, when she was talking or moving, you'd see shadows of other movements, because they briefly touched on the whole, like, the atoms are existing in multiple places at the same time and getting stitched back together kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool. I really liked seeing that stuff throughout it.
It would have been nice.
The weak villain thing, really, it bothers me a lot more because we've just had a string of really good villains. Like, we had Hell in Thor. We had Ego in Guardian.
Well,
Sam
we
would argue.
Had Killmonger in Black Panther, and then we had Thanos in Avengers, and then we get Ghost.
Well, the way I kind of see Ghost, though, is she's a villain only because of circumstance. She's not really, like, full-hearted at it. She's not a bad guy because she wants to be a bad guy. She's only the villain in this movie because this is the way she sees that she can save herself.
Right.
And then once that's resolved, she's, okay and kind of out of the picture.
Right, and it kind of ties into my bigger complaint of I just feel like the entire story was a narrative driving towards the mid-credit scene.
Okay.
Like the entire film was kind of a throwaway leading up to that.
So let's talk about the mid-credit scene. So the mid-credit scene is they get the also. Oh, before we get there, one last like unserious note. When Hank and Janet do the whole beach house thing, how do they have running water, and how do they have like filtration?
No,
there's
there's a lot of
there's a lot of things
in this movie. You have to like, it always bothered me with phasing things. They never address phasing into the ground. Like,
Gotcha.
that's never a thing. And I wish in this movie she had like occasionally just like got stuck or something.
Gotcha.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, that's something they almost never address with any character that's like that in other things.
And that's what I was hoping. Maybe, but no.
The ground is a magic place. You never phase through it.
It's different because it's Earth.
Well, okay, this is a little off topic. Brian, we just need to start doing a podcast also on like Hero Academia because of Lemillion, because they had Chris. Look, I swear to you, you should watch MHA because they address things like that when it comes to powers. Like
like they have a character that phases through things, and like how he had to spend an entire forever trying to train himself to not just fall through the ground all the time.
Yeah, or like he almost died because he was swimming and he couldn't control his power, and he was trying to swim to the surface, but because he was phasing through the water, he couldn't. And he almost drowned and died. So it's that kind of stuff is brought up in the show and in the manga, and it's one of the reasons I really enjoy it because they address that.
I think the best way to describe the show would be like it's a combination of X-Men, Teen Titans, and trying to think like Naruto, I guess.
Sure. Could have picked a better anime.
I mean,
I'm just no.
I know I could have,
No.
but like it feels like a really good like superhero children's story.
The guy who created it, he follows comics pretty regularly, and I'm glad he does. But that was off topic, just because you brought it up. I figured I'd mention it. So back to the mid-credit scene. So they set up a quantum tunnel in a van on a rooftop. Scott's gonna go in there and get some sort of quantum particles, yeah,
Ghost, so that she doesn't have to worry about phasing.
Yeah, and then while he's there, Thanos' snap happens, and Janet, Hope, and Hank are all dusted. So I think it's fine. Like I said, I know, Brian, you're saying that you could have seen that post credit and like
they could have just put that scene in Avengers.
I don't know, man. I think it's one of those like hindsight things. I think when
you need that build up to you need some kind of backstory for getting Janet out of the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that this film really did enough for me personally as far as a plot to make me appreciate it as a standalone film.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like for me it was one of the few Marvel films that it needs, like, you have to have all the context around it to really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I think we've gotten to that point in the MCU. I'm fine with the movie. Like I'm fine with the build up. I'm fine with who they used and kind of what they did with it. I think it's gonna be one of these hindsight things. I think whatever comes after Avengers or Infinity War, whether it's the second part of it or even Antman 3, whatever that is, if it even is a thing, right? We don't know. I think looking back on it, the movie will make more sense, and it'll have like a more solid place in the MCU once we can see what's coming next. Because I agree with you right now.
Well, I mean, I'm not denying the fact that it's gonna have, like, it's important what happened. Because, like, the quantum realm is directly going to impact what's happening in Avengers, because there's gonna be some sort of time travel with it. But just it's not so much where it stands as far as the other films go, because it is necessary for the story. It's just, other than those key elements, I don't feel like it really did anything to drive the Ant-Man story along.
Gotcha.
Because I feel like it's just serving the purpose of Avengers.
Well,
neither did the original Ant-Man have a really good.
This movie was more. See, but here's the thing: Ant-Man, the first movie, was all Scott Lang. I feel like this movie was just as much Hope, like Hope, Hank, and Janet's kind of story arc. So I think I agree with you that it didn't push Ant-Man's story forward very much, right? It's mostly him and Cassie. But I think it accomplished moving Hope forward and bringing her more to standing side by side with Ant-Man, because they addressed that in the movie, the whole, why didn't Scott tell Hope about Civil War? Because so there's the conflict between them in the beginning of the movie is that Scott didn't tell Hank and Hope about wanting to fight with Captain America in the Civil War and getting put on house arrest in the suit and everything. So I think it was just as much her kind of story as well. So yeah, it doesn't really progress his story, but I think it does its job of bringing the Wasp to kind of stand toe to toe with him as far as importance in the.
It feels like strong characters with a weak narrative to me, which really bothers me.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I can see your point on that.
Because it's kind of the same issue that you had with Iron Man 2, except all of the characters in Iron Man 2 were forgettable.
I got to rewatch it. I liked Rhodey and his interaction. I think it was necessary that movie was necessary as far as Rhodey. But yeah, the villains were stupid and
but it's just like
Whiplash.
Iron Man had a very formulaic plot, and it was very much like just a thing that they like. At least this one felt more like it was driving towards the Avengers. Iron Man didn't even feel like that. It just felt like it was a movie that they were putting out for the sake of putting out another Iron.
Gotcha.
Yes. Just because like that. Mark? If you think about it early on, it makes sense that they're just trying to build characters and we have to focus on Tony, right? Through the Ant-Man through the Iron Man stuff. In this late in the game, though, I feel like after following Infinity War, you kind of have to maybe not have such a fucking downer of a movie.
For sure.
First of all,
it was,
and I think that
like Ant-Man and Wasp was, for me, I think I read someone described it as a good palate cleanser, because it really was. I think
that for me, what it is that Winter Soldier just set a very high standard for what I expect Marvel sequels to be.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And so nothing's really lived up to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
No, you mean Empire Strikes Back setup.
No, Winter Soldier.
Yes.
So I guess I guess the post-credit scene wasn't really anything except for I really liked the post-credit scene. I liked the it's something simple, but the emergency broadcast system playing was really cool. I liked that because it's like, oh man, like things are happening in the world. Like the world continued to move forward with what you would expect it to. I don't know, that for whatever reason that stuck with me. I like the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
As minuscule as it was.
I still have mixed feelings about the Fox buyout.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of really wish it would happen so that they could use Hank Pym in the Negative Zone, so that they could use the Negative Zone to tie in the universes.
Mm-hmm. It would be cool.
That would be phenomenal.
Gotcha. I want to ask you guys what you think is. We'll start with Chris, just because Chris is either not wanting to talk or we're talking over him. Chris, what do you think? Like, where do you think the series goes from here, as far as like, or I guess what are your theories on, with the way this one ended, how does this play into Avengers, whatever the next one's going to be called? Infinity War, not Infinity War, Part 1, Part 1,
Avengers
not 1, Part
4. Just call Avengers 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really sure because, I mean, I know some of the theories out there currently are that somehow, the quantum zone is going to be used to, I don't know, reboot the universe or somehow, fix what Thanos did.
Mhm.
But Scott's not going to be one to do it, I don't think, because he doesn't have enough of an understanding of that to do anything with it. And the 3 people that did currently don't exist.
Gotcha.
Unless Bill didn't get wiped out. He might,
Mm-hmm.
they might be able to use him to do something with that.
See, that's what I thought was going to happen. I subscribed to when I saw it happen. I was like, the only other people that would know what they're doing, where they're doing, would potentially be Bill and Ava, because they'd be like, hey, we're going to try to get, quantum particles to help Ava, and we're going to do it, on Sunday at whatever, right? So
right.
I feel like I agree with you that
Put it in the planner.
right, the potential is there for Bill and Ava to potentially save Scott. I know, Brian, you mentioned the time travel thing, and I remember Janet did say that when he was going to get shrunk down. She was like, avoid the wormhole or whatever, or the time,
Right.
whatever. So there's that
He said
possibility.
avoid the tardigrade zone.
Oh, yeah.
My theory is that what happened to Scott is going to tie directly into what Doctor Strange was setting up in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely we're going to see those 2 characters meet up in some way, because it's important for whatever Doctor Strange was setting up to get the stones away from Thanos.
And that's fair enough too. Sam?
Well, I want to add that we still don't know what happened to Shuri as well. Not that
That's true.
That she's real versed in all the stuff that Hank has been doing, but she's also that person that could also contribute something.
Gotcha.
On top of that, I feel like there are 2 ways that they could play out the Scott thing, because number one, I don't think that Hank would have sent Scott in there without some kind of failsafe in case things went wrong on their end.
Uh-huh.
So either he has some kind of way of getting out, or he's going to end up using the quantum realm to do some sort of weird time travel thing that he doesn't know how to control.
How did Scott get out the first time, though?
He put
one of the discs
in his belt, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I'm sure that he has some sort of failsafe to figure it out. But I think that the quantum realm is going to be important for trying to figure out how to undo what was done in the movie.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Or if they're not going to undo it, it's important to do for whatever. They didn't address what Strange was setting up.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be addressed in the next movie. It has to be. That was the obvious thing that they were setting up in that entire fight.
Yeah. For sure. I guess that's it. At least as far as the movie as a whole. I guess overall thoughts on it. We'll start with you, Chris. Kind of, what are your overall thoughts on the movie? What you felt were good parts, bad parts, and then out of 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being, 1 being just garbage, absolute, terrible, and then 5 being perfect or damn near perfect, kind of what your score is. So go ahead.
I mean, honestly, I'd give it about a 4. There wasn't. I mean, yeah, you could have done more to build the villain up, but like I said, I think she was kind of a villain of circumstance. So I didn't hate how they handled her character that much. I found it to be an enjoyable movie. I didn't really feel like it lagged at any particular point, and it wasn't one where you were sitting there half an hour in going, well, fuck, what time is it? I felt they kept the pacing well, and it kept me entertained throughout the entire movie, regardless of character building and all that stuff. I felt it was a fairly entertaining movie.
Okay. Sam, I'm curious because I don't know if you were just fucking with me when you posted you didn't like it.
So I'm with Q on this because there's great characters. It was entertaining, and I was not bored as well. There's a lot of good points in this. I think Ghost is an interesting character that I want to see more of.
Mhm.
I'm glad that it wasn't just copy pasta villain
Mhm.
either, but there's so many holes, not holes, but like just plot convenient things that just like, really, guys, like I guess I look at it over all of the phases, and it's always been getting better.
Gotcha.
It's always been getting better. And this movie is the first movie that I would like, if we're talking about putting them in that, where do they stand out of all the movies? This is going into like the phase 1, like early movies, because it didn't overall, it just the narrative was just really bad.
Gotcha.
For me.
So out of 5?
Like 2.5.
Okay, fair enough. Q.
So, I mean, number one, I'd go ahead and give it a 3. Like, I didn't hate it, and I thought the characters were really, really good. I just felt like they should have used the characters to drive the story more than they used the story to drive the characters.
Fair enough.
And I was entertained throughout the entire film. I didn't really feel like I was bored at any point outside of the exposition behind Ghost's character, because I thought she was worthless.
Not
But like, beyond that, I enjoyed the film, and I didn't at any point feel like it wasn't fun, at the very least, and I want to see more of the characters.
Gotcha.
I'm curious what they're going to do with Ant-Man after they do Infinity War.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. A lot of stuff I hit on, I loved what they did with the characters overall. Like I said, Scott's interactions with his daughter and everyone, the effects on Ghost and the fight scenes in general. Humor was funny. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I agree with you guys. It never lagged. It was a fun ride throughout. I mean, I'd give it 3.5. Like I said, I don't think anyone would be disappointed if they go see it. I mean, Sam was kind of disappointed, but even then, he you enjoyed it.
Sam had unrealistic expectations because he loves Ant-Man.
I didn't have.
So yeah, I said I enjoy it. I'm glad they didn't shy away from Scott. I don't want them to ever kind of abandon his whole. I mean, eventually, right? But I'm glad they still haven't abandoned his whole ex-con, and he wants to be a part of his family, and that whole thing.
I feel like they did a good job with, like you said, using it as like a palate cleanser for what's been going on in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
But I also feel like because of the movies it's following up, that it felt a lot weaker.
Gotcha.
You basically just said the same thing I said.
Yeah. Well, fine.
What do you guys think? This could be just media bias, specifically from people who prefer the DC movies. I was reading articles saying that like they were calling Ant-Man, the first flop in a while because it only made like 80 million in its first weekend, but Marvel was projecting it to make anywhere from 80 to 84. So
it's a flop because it was on par with other films instead of breaking the box office.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird. Like, I know, right, when the more obscure heroes kind of have movies, especially like
you can make a movie about a character like Ant-Man and it can still sell well. I think that says a lot about your studio. Because if DC were to try and make a character or make a movie about Adam, nobody would fucking watch that.
For sure. Yeah. So like, just to give you what was it? So like, just Googling, Ant-Man and Wasp money. Box office Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp can afford to fail.
Like with it can, because Black Panther and
and Avengers made all the money.
Yeah.
So Marvel can basically do whatever they want. That's why they're probably not worried about putting out another film until March of next year.
Right.
I'm curious as to when we're gonna get our first look at Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd see something from that too.
There's a chance that we might see something at Comic-Con, but I kind of doubt it. It sounds like they're gonna wait until like probably August or September before we see something.
Which is what they should be doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't. I agree with you, Brian. Like, Marvel doesn't care. Like, if it hits,
like it's not that they don't care about the film, because obviously they care about the film. It's just they've got a very large safety net.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt them if this one doesn't bring in,
all of the money.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is one of the other reasons that they can afford to take risks like this that DC can't.
Yeah.
Well, and also to the point of it being a flop, though, what was the cost of production for the movie?
Right.
If it brings in, over what I think it is, over half, or makes back what they cost on production is, it's not a flop. Right. It might be a flop by some people's standards, but technically it's not a flop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a hard time believing that this film didn't make a profit for Disney.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm with you. And like I said, I just let's see, hold on.
It's just how fanboys are.
It's also how the media is. The media likes to overplay things anyway. So
yeah,
the media likes to focus on the negative.
Well, yeah, that's how you get clicks.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think overall it has its niche in the MCU. I'm trying to think. So that's really it on Antman Wasp as far as a movie. I think you should go see it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
That's worth seeing.
What so we got nothing else for the rest of this year, right? Next year it's
Wreck-It Ralph 2.
No, I'm talking about MCU.
It's a Disney film, so I was just talking about Disney films.
Specifically MCU, it's
Marvel, Infinity or Avengers
Captain
4,
Marvel
and then
in
Spider-Man.
March, and then Avengers in May, and Spider-Man after that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So there's no other MCU movies until the end of this year. We get a Spider-Verse movie, which I'm super happy about.
But I don't even know if that's going to tie into anything.
I don't need it to. I just want to see Spider-Verse. But I think you made a good point, Brian. I think it's interesting that Disney is kind of like we've had movies kind of spread out throughout the entire year, and now for the first time we've got almost a year until almost, right, like 8 months, 9 months until the next Marvel movie. But they're not.
Honestly, I think it's really smart of them because personally, I've been starting to get kind of fatigued by the superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
So them slowing down a little bit and taking time to get the next one out, I personally appreciate.
It's also been a really long fucking year already because, like, Black Panther was really good. Infinity War was really good. This movie
This movie was really good, Sam.
But
how dare you?
But it like with two really big hits.
Yeah,
like it's a lot to. Yeah,
and I mean it's still better than Dark World.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think all of the movies have to be record-breaking, trend-setting, like box office behemoths. Like I firmly believe they don't need to be that. Right? You have the ones that are that. Your Avengers movies, when Black Panther came out, when the first Spider-Man, I believe, was one of those movies. Like, yeah, it wasn't like super record-breaking, but everybody was blown away by, the improvements that Marvel made to the movie. I don't need it to be, a magnum opus.
I just appreciate that they're branching out and they're allowing these characters to be themselves.
Yeah,
and they're not just trying to copy like a formula that works for one of the movies on all of the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. I guess that's really it. Anybody else? Any closing remarks? Any last predictions or whatever you want to get out?
I still want to know what they're actually going to title the new Avengers movie.
That is true. They haven't. Well, we don't know if they have. Fucking Sam over here clicking on spoilers and shit.
Look.
You're the worst about that, Sam. I want you to know that.
Did you hear that there's the theory going around that Thanos time traveled to a different timeline?
Like, and that's where he is at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Stop
I don't
ruining
know.
things, Sam. How about that? Sure.
It would make sense since I'm willing to bet that time travel is going to be an important aspect of the next movie.
For sure. Yeah, well, let's see what happens.
Especially since I haven't actively looked at spoilers, but I have seen some of the set photos unwillingly.
I know, fucking jerks.
Unwillingly.
Yeah, man, people just post fucking screenshots like, oh, here's set photos. Like, fucking warning, please. Idiots, man.
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Venom comes out this year, right?
So does Aquaman.
Oh yeah, Aquaman does come out this year. I completely fucking forgot about that.
The 29th of December.
Chris, me and Brian and Sam have talked about it to death. This is kind of off topic, but it's fine. I don't care. What are your thoughts on Venom?
I'm concerned because I don't understand how Venom works without Spider-Man.
That's a nice way of putting it.
That's a big issue a lot of people have.
Right. I think it's an understandable issue because he's so intrinsically linked to Spider-Man that I'm just not sure how they're going to make this work without it.
Mm-hmm.
I've read enough of the Venom comics to know how it could work without Spider-Man, but Sony doesn't know how to make it work without Spider-Man.
No, they don't.
Right.
I'm concerned. Like I said, I tell people, I constantly show people that fucking motorcycle scene from his trailer. That for me kind of tells me where Sony thinks, or where Sony's head is at with Venom. And someone was like, "Oh, well, you can't really trust trailers because those scenes might not be in the movie, or those, they could be altered." And it's like, I just can't trust it. Like, I don't.
You can't alter the film that much.
Well, I mean, you say that, but the Thanos Infinity Gauntlet thing, right? He had 2 stones, and when he was fighting Steve.
That's not a huge alteration, to be fair.
To be fair, yeah, it is very minimal, like technical wise. I'm just saying, like, remember we were all wondering if he was going to get all of the stones in the first movie.
Yeah.
And then he did, and it was like, oh, well, that scene was altered. But no, I just think the overall, like, when I would look at the edits and when I look at like the scene itself.
Marvel has also historically done a whole lot of that misdirection whenever they're doing these movies.
Yeah, like the Mandarin.
They did the Mandarin thing. They had what's his face, the guy that played
Ben Kingsley.
Not Ben Kingsley. I'm thinking of the guy from Guardians.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. Why can I not remember his name?
From Guardians?
No. Talk about
the guy that plays what's his face? Star-Lord's not dad. Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
They had him on a whole lot of the set.
I got kind of choked up at that part. Makes me think.
So like the misdirection thing is definitely a thing that Marvel's done historically.
Huh.
Well, I mean, yeah, they recognize the fact that leaks are going to happen, and they're not usually the studio's not in charge of cutting the trailers. They usually farm that out to somebody else.
Company, yeah.
There's also like the running joke of them not telling Tom Holland things because he immediately spoils them.
Well, he spoiled the name of the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Was it Away From Home?
Like
Far From Home.
Some of the interviews where he's been with Cumberbatch, and Cumberbatch has to like cover up his mouth and like stop.
Yeah. No, I don't.
At this point, I have to wonder how much of that's intentional now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, just to keep playing with it.
Yeah.
But at the same token, like, he's a kid playing Spider-Man. Wouldn't you be just fucking thrilled?
Side note, I love Tom Holland and Anthony Mackie interactions, if you haven't seen those. Where Mackie just constantly dogs on Holland. But it was really funny because there was an interview at one of the cons where Mackie admitted to Holland's face, he was like, I've never seen a Spider-Man movie. And he's like, oh man, that kind of hurts. And he was like, well, to be fair, I've never seen the Falcon. Oh, there isn't one. And like the crowd like erupts and shit. Like, again, they could be playing that up. I just thought it was funny, just given the history of it. If nothing else, Marvel does a great job of marketing their movies, and like having their actors and actresses like go out and be kind of, you know, in the community and interacting with.
They did.
So,
They did actually do for Guardians 2. They had a whole panel and brought out all like Taserface and all of those henchmen.
That's awesome.
does anyone else think that we might get to see more of Hela? Because I kind of think that we're going to get to see more of her.
It would be interesting if she didn't die.
She was just kind of like, oh, I'm here. Okay, bye.
It really bothered me because she was a really good villain, and they didn't do nearly enough.
Sam doesn't agree.
I do.
Oh,
I do agree.
I thought you said she wasn't all that.
Yeah, she wasn't there half the time. It was.
Yeah, they set up this really strong character and then did nothing with her.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, it was
kind of like Ghost.
It was more about Thor.
Well, they set up a really weak character with Ghost and did too much with her.
Whatever. Okay, well, I guess we'll end it there. Go out and check out Antman and Wasp. We'll probably do
Wreck-It Ralph.
I'm down to do Wreck-It Ralph. I'd really like to do a Wonder Woman / Justice League one, since I've finally seen Wonder Woman and Sam finally saw Justice League. I'd like to do that.
Fine.
I
can sign myself.
See Wonder Woman sometime
I
soon.
think it'd be interesting to talk about it because, you know, the comparisons need to be made between the MCU and, you know, yes, they're different heroes, different companies, blah blah blah, blah. But, you know,
can we just do like a comparison podcast about the DC and the Marvel universe? Where I talk about how the reason that DC fails is because all of their characters are too larger than life and not relatable.
Nope, we don't need to do it. You just explained it. Gave it
Nixed. Well, see, if we want to do a comparison, I'd really want to talk to some like DC fanboys and fangirls, because if it's just us, like if Chris joins us too, I feel like it's just going to be us constantly shitting on DC. Not that they don't deserve it for some things. No, not that they don't deserve it for some things. But
Dexter.
But I think it's important to at least try to understand why people defend the movies as heavily as they do.
People defend them because fanboys are dumb.
But then again, they would say the same thing about Marvel fans. So
that's true.
Yes,
yeah,
but I'm not really defending Marvel films from a Marvel perspective. I'm defending them from a filmmaking perspective.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like,
but there's some bias in there, Q. Don't lie.
For sure.
I mean, yeah, because Batman's dumb.
I want to see Venom and do a Venom podcast, and I want to go watch Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Because I want to give them my money, because I want that movie to sell more tickets than Justice League or something.
The live action ones.
Yeah. If that happens, I don't know. This would be hilarious. I think it'd be awesome. Because
maybe it'll make brothers evaluate their entire plan.
Right. A knockoff Teen Titans cartoon turned into a movie would make more money than the live action stuff that they
if they just did a like cinematic release for Young Justice, I'd totally go see that.
Yeah, I'd see it. One last question to pose to you guys. Sorry, I know I said I was gonna go. Anybody else feel like these rumors about a Snyder Cut of Justice League need to go away, and that a Snyder Cut just doesn't need to be a thing?
It's the dumbest defense that I've heard about Justice League forever.
I understand. I think I can kind of understand why people would want it.
Mm-hmm.
People want it because they're disappointed with what they got, and they think that it'll somehow make it better.
Yes, and they think that, you know, it's the idea that we didn't, you know, they didn't get to see his true fully realized version of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly have no idea whether that would make the movie better or worse. But I can understand why they keep bringing it up. I just also don't know that it's going to make a difference, that anything's going to happen because of that.
I think the diehards will say it's a better version. I don't think it would actually be better, because there were so many things wrong with that movie, and there are people on my Facebook that constantly post like, Zack Snyder releases deleted scenes that didn't get made into the movie. Zack Snyder releases unseen photos and set photos, and And I'm like, even like going through those, I'm like, but one, Zack Snyder needs to let it go. First of all, two, none of the things they're showing or talking about like address the issues of it as a film. Like, sure, we can talk about, you know, how they developed the characters or presented them, but like if the film itself was done poorly, you know, editing or pacing, or a lot of that doesn't get fixed. Even when we did the BVS extended, right, it helped the pacing a little bit, but overall the movie was still clunky and long and, you know, unnecessary with some parts. Like, it didn't turn it from a, you know, a bad film to a great film. It took a bad film to like, oh, I'm like, I can understand it a little bit more.
Well, and you know, I don't remember. Actually, I don't know just how much of the movie is his version and how much of it is, you know, after they brought in the next director. I'm not sure how much of the movie, you know, is it 50%? Is it 70%? I'm not sure. But even then, it doesn't address the fact that you tried to throw in too many characters that most people aren't familiar with and build all their backstories in one movie.
Yeah.
And that was one of my biggest critiques with it.
I know for sure the opening scene of Justice League was all Whedon. Like, that entire, like, Batman kind of hunting down the, whatever it's called, I don't remember. The Parademon? Parademon.
The Parademon.
Yeah.
That was entirely Whedon, and a lot of people had good things to say about that. But
wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
Look, as long as people continue to be upset that they didn't get a director's cut of Justice League, I'm going to continue to be upset that I didn't get a director's cut of Ultron.
Dude, did you hear that when they were brainstorming ideas for the final fight, did you see that picture that a concept artist drew up where they you know, just to throw it out there, they imagined doing a giant Ultron made from like the smaller body Ultrons fighting?
I think that would have been cool.
Like, it's interesting. I you know, I can see why they didn't, because
I'm gonna be upset if we never get any more Ultron, because Ultron's a very big recurring character in the universe.
Who knows?
Like, not that long ago, they did a big return with Ultron where he like fused with Hank Pym.
Really?
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, like he came back from space and he was part Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just like, oh, well, that's the thing now. But I think that would be really interesting if we get to see more Ultron at some point.
For sure.
Because I thought that Ultron was a good villain. He just didn't get... He wasn't utilized properly.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
But that's very off topic at this point.
Gotcha. Well, I say we call it there. Thanks for waiting the week for me to see Ant-Man, guys. The next movie, like I said, is it Venom?
I guess technically it's Teen Titans.
Oh, technically Teen Titans. Okay, well, either way, we're going to go see it. Chris, thanks for joining us. You're always welcome back.
Yeah.
We'll always ask you which ones you want to participate in, just because we like having.
Yeah, if you wanted to come back for the Justice League one, I'd be down, because that's going to be much more of a discussion and not so much us talking about the plot of the story.
Yeah.
Of the movie.
So you're always welcome back. But
cool.
If no one else has anything else to say, I'm going to end it, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.